Thank you very much for having Mel and I here today. We really appreciate the partnership with Carl and through Carl with the rest of you. Really, Engage Workfaith doesn't work unless it's connected in to churches and that we have a trusted partnership, because we're often dealing with congregations, people during the week, and we know that work is only really one aspect of a whole person's Christian discipleship, and we need the wider body of Christ, and we need to be connected and integrated into that. So it's lovely to be able to speak to you on mission in a mission week, and particularly do something like get you thinking about your own mission field that God's given to you. I'm going to just confess that I took this book, What is the Great Commission by J.C. Sproul, from the library up there exactly 12 months ago. So I'm returning it today. But you may want to take it out, hopefully not for 12 months. I think that's probably... And the other thing is, look, sometimes when you hear people speak, I was listening to someone yesterday and I thought, oh, I won't go up and talk to them afterwards because they're the speaker and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, now that's crazy. They probably are sitting there thinking it'd be nice to talk to people and it'd be nice to hear their story and what they're doing. So if you want to do that with me at the end of the service, I'm more than happy. I'll be up where I've got some information about Engage Workfaith. So feel free to come and chat. I've introduced my wife. I've told you that she's the better half of the arrangement here, but a few years ago we had a holiday in the Victorian Alps, and I'll just check. Have you got a picture there of the Victorian Alps? There we go. Yes, okay, all right. So, oh wow, thanks. Gee, it looks so much better than it did when I took it. And we were walking through the valley around near Bright, and there was a 12-kilometre walking trail which went straight up to Mount Feathertop, 1,900 metres, and it promised this great rooftop view of the alpine area in Victoria. But there was also a warning sign that came with it, and the warning sign said, only for experienced alpine walkers. Area subject to sudden weather changes, whiteouts, snow, gale force winds, freezing temperatures. So then you've got my wife, got me, we've got the dog with us. We're looking at the sign and I'm thinking, I reckon we could probably pull this off, you know. And Mel, who knows me so well, I didn't even need to say that. She read my mind and she just said in a very firm voice, we're not climbing that mountain today. So what we did instead was we drove up to Mount Hotham and we drove into rain, driving rain, whiteout and freezing temperatures. And we took shelter in a lodge up there to have a hot chocolate and came back down. So just as well. So what is it with this fascination that sometimes we have with, you know, going up to the top of mountains and having a look at the view? You know, there's a Scotsman in 1906 who decided to climb all 282 Scottish peaks. If you've got a Scottish background, you might know about this. And his name was Munro, and it became a thing, Munro bagging, in his honour. Today, over 7,500 people have completed the task of those 282 peaks, it's taking them on average about 20 years to get through them all. And I repeat my question, why? Why are we so fascinated with mountains? Now, I've got a quick quiz for you now, and I want to see whether you know your mountains around the globe. And if you recognise the mountain, just put up your hand and then we'll just give you the glory if you know what it is. So let's go through them. Yeah, up the back. Everest. Yep. Everest? No. Okay, I'll give you a clue. Europe. It's the Matterhorn. That's right. Next one. Yeah, Mount Fuji. Great place to go for holidays at the moment. This one. If you've been to Japan, you might know this. It's called Mount Takao, and apparently it has 2.6 million tourists every year to go and see it, because you can get there on a bullet train that's very quick. Right, next. Yeah. Table Mountain. Yep. And the next. Oh, come on. It's Hobart. Cheap flights, $76 down there with Jetstar at the moment. Okay, and the last one. What a great name. So, 727 metres, and we call it Mount Lofty. Lofty. There we go. So in history, mountains are these great intersection points between often the gods and humans, the world. So if you think about Mount Sinai in the Bible, that's where the law's given at that point. If you go to the Greek gods, they're all gathering around Mount Olympus in their sort of folklore. And Mount Zion, the location where the Jerusalem temple was, another intersection point between God and people. So here's my question as we look at Matthew 28 today. Why is it that Jesus musters his disciples to a mountain 120 kilometres away from where all the action has just happened? His death, his burial, his resurrection. We think it might be this mountain here, Mount Arbel. It's not very high, but it's got a pretty dramatic view over the Sea of Galilee. But we think that's possibly where he was calling them to go. But why? What's the significance of this location? Why does it call them 120 kilometres away? Well, if you read Matthew's Gospel, you see that's the kick-off point for Jesus' ministry in Matthew 4. It's where he pulls his team together. It's where he delivers his major address that we've come to call the Sermon on the Mount. It's where the story gets going. It's where it all began. And so, in a sense, going back to that spot makes sense in Matthew's Gospel. It's a highly charged place. But more than the location, I'm going to suggest to you today there are 4 things that makes the Great Commission great. It's who gives it, who gets it, how we do it, and who goes with us. So, who gives it, who gets it, how we do it, and who goes with us. So, let's look at the first one. Who gives it? In verse 18, Jesus actually says there, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, and the sense of the words are more like, all authority has just been given to me, just been handed over to me. All through Jesus' life, he demonstrates his power. You go to Matthew chapter 8, and he's got power over demons. In chapter 9, he's got the power to forgive sins. And now that authority unfurls all the way to its natural endpoint, which is power over death itself. So death and sin are no longer just naturally welded together. The resurrected Christ is not some resuscitated corpse, just brought back to life only to do his dying all over again on another day. The risen Lord is not just some surviving influence in the world that inspires people because he was such a great leader. This is not some experience that goes on inside the disciples' head with the power of positive thinking. No, what they've got in front of them is a completely renovated and changed person. This is not just the end of Matthew's story. It's the end of God's patient and enduring project to take finite creatures like you and I and make us immortal. This is a transformed person before them. The resurrected Christ, he has a new glorified body. The natural processes of decay have been arrested. This is a unique point in cosmic history. Christ is alive. He's real. He's tangible. He's there for them. And he says, all authority has been given to me now. He's not gone and ripped it off anyone else. It's been given to him, bestowed on him. Matthew 28, it's like an enthronement ceremony. It's like what we might have seen when King Charles recently had his coronation ceremony. It's a formal declaration. It's a formal transfer of whatever power was in other people's hands is now being put safely into this person's hands now. So what makes this commission great is the person who gives it. The truckload of authority that's coming behind his words. Nobody falls outside the gamut of this. It echoes Philippians 2 that says, therefore God has exalted him above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth, and every tongue confess that he is Lord. That's who's giving it. It's on the hinge of this that he then gives Christians their marching orders for mission. Because he has all authority, therefore, he says, you go and make disciples of all nations. And Matthew refers to Galilee as belonging to the Gentiles in chapter 4, and he's really only echoing the prophets before him, Isaiah in particular, who said, by the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who were sitting in darkness saw a great light, and to those who were sitting in the land and the shadow of death, upon them a light has dawned. So up until this point, they'd gone out to the lost sheep of Israel. But now Jesus expands the mission. It becomes universal in its scope. It's all the nations. And this is not his great recommendation for your life. It's not his great suggestion of what to do. It is his final charge. He's literally saying, go and reach people who don't know me. The Great Commission is the first response of obedience for somebody who has encountered Jesus. And note the depth of it, not just the scope. I mean, this says make disciples. Jesus calls on them to not just get people over the line to agree that Jesus is Lord and splash a bit of water on them. No, we're called to make disciples out of people. Now, Jesus shows us how he did that with his own disciples in the book of Matthew. And when you read that, you'll see that he had his job cut out for him. I mean, there was a lot of knocking into shape that had to go on. So much blindness, misunderstanding, failure, pride, sin. When people start following Jesus, if you're part of that process, it's the most amazing thing. But it's also very messy. And it takes a lot of time. Because sanctification takes time in people. So Jesus is saying now, I've discipled you. Now you, the disciple, must turn into a discipler. They must do what Jesus did for them. And the catalyst for doing this is a resurrected Jesus in front of their face. What else could have motivated them? I mean, that event catapulted Christians into mission in the first century. Because Jesus has all authority, he can now give Christians their marching orders. In its strictest sense, a missionary is not someone who crosses the sea, it's someone who sees the cross. That's what it is. They see the cross. He doesn't say, okay, I've got this little show going. Can you maintain it? Not muck it up. It's not too hard to handle at this stage. No, what does he say? He gives them an extraordinary mandate. Make disciples of all human beings across the face of the earth, teaching them to obey all that I've commanded you. Many, many years ago, I was part of a committee that had to arrange the visit of John Stott, the great theologian and preacher, to South Australia. And he spoke at the Adelaide Town Hall. It was fantastic. I still remember that night, his response, unforgettable response to a question about the growing alternatives to Christianity that were popping up. And this is what he said. He said to the person Mission is not some impertinent interference in other people's lives. It is the unavoidable deduction of the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Mission is not the impertinent interference in other people's lives. It is the unavoidable deduction from the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Now, you may have noticed that the longer a person's a Christian, often what happens is the world of their non-Christian friends just shrinks dramatically. And that sort of is understandable in some ways because they are becoming part of a Christian community. But I think it's something that for my wife and I as a ministry couple have worked very hard to counter. We've tried to always keep friends with the world and know where people are outside the church. And we've tried to communicate that to our children as well, and we see that we wanted them to love God's people and love the church, but we didn't want them to see it as an escape route all the time and as a monastery to go and get hauled up in. The Great Commission calls you beyond your comfort zone. It's going to take you out to people not always like you, to territory that you haven't got pegged out. The priority to spread the gospel is really one of the primary indicators that you get that Jesus is now your Lord. It's the primary indicator. So that's who's giving it. The whole world is fair game because of it. So how do we do it? Do you know, even as God is narrowing down his blessings to one man, one family, one tribe, which is Abraham and the Jews, he's still got his eye on the whole world in Genesis 12. Have a look at this promise to Abraham. I'll make you into a great nation. I'll bless you. I'll make your name great. You'll be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you, Abraham. And the Old Testament shows us how that promise gets unfurled. The Jews become this amazing attractional community. They're like a magnet. You know, people come from all over the world to see Solomon and to see the God of Israel. And the Psalms reinforce that sort of strategy. And if you go to the minor prophets like Zechariah, I've got the quote here from Zechariah 8, and many peoples and powerful nations will come to Jerusalem to seek the Lord Almighty and to entreat him. Now, Johannes Blau was the secretary for the Netherlands Missionary Council, and he wrote a book in 1974. It looks like it comes from 1974, and it is a game changer if you want to understand mission. He observed that this Old Testament missional model is sort of like a drawing in. It's a sort of compelling the nations to come and see the God of the Jews. But he says, at Jesus' death and resurrection, that largely gets flipped. Not completely, but largely gets flipped. So that if the message before was, come to us to find out about God, now the message is, go out to them. And we see that in the activity of the early church in the book of Acts. If you were a good Jew and you were sitting at the temple waiting for everybody to stream in, the world to come and see who God is, you'd be waiting a long time. How did the Christians, 12 people, reach an entire empire? They went out. That's what Acts tells us. Acts 8 verse 4. Those in Jerusalem were scattered and they went about preaching the word. And I take it not all those people were trained ministry staff. Some of them were rank and file for sure. God's people go out into the world. This sort of scattering strategy, it's part of what we do. It dominates the book of Acts. If we're honest, we find this hard. We find it hard to lead a missional life scattered in the world. Why? Why is the attractional model easier? Well, you bring someone here. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying when you bring someone here, they're the one who does all the adjusting to be here. You know what's going on. You know when to stand. You know when you can leave and come and go. You know where the toilets are. You know there's coffee coming. Basically, they're on tenterhooks the whole time because it's a strange environment for them. If they have perplexing questions, well, you've got some experts, you've got you've got Carl, you've got other people endorsed in leadership here who could answer the curly questions you don't know the answers to. And I suppose the other thing is, you think to yourself, what if I fold out there? What if I lose my distinctiveness as a Christian out there in the world? Now, I understand that your primary means of evangelism as a church is that you do see yourself as scattered through the week. The saints scattered. I love that. It's such a great picture of what you're doing. One of the reasons I said before Engage Work Faith was set up was because we understood that Christians were scattered and in small numbers during their work week, day after day. And so we put on events occasionally, to try and show people what the gospel looks like and to, model that to Christians so they could do that privately with their friends. But at the end of the day, the engine room for us are the groups of people who get together and pray for their work and pray for their workmates and pray for their boss and pray for their work culture. Countless discussions that are happening in South Australia every week with Christians with their not yet Christian friends. Given your understanding of evangelism, that it is scattered, imagine this group here, what it looks like during the week when you're all out there as little lights. If you want to read more on this, Andrew Scott, in his book Scatter, observes that even a casual read of Acts demonstrates that Christians infected the world like they were releasing a pandemic. Within 300 years, Christians had turned the Roman Empire upside down. How? Well, he says this. This was not simply done by a bunch of preachers and missionaries holding gospel events, but by the energetic witness of people who lived next door or worked alongside those who did not know Jesus. They were business owners, labourers, fathers, mothers, storekeepers, merchants, slaves, carpenters, bureaucrats, officials, soldiers, landlords, living out their Christian lives in the communities into which God had scattered them. God's people were scattered across every strata of society, from the palace to the slave. Why? Why, when it comes to the great news of Jesus, might we be hesitant to walk out there? Well, I have to give you a confession here. As a kid, balls weren't my gig. Hand-eye coordination problems somewhere down the track. But as a parent, I was going to really enthusiastically support my son's soccer every Saturday. I didn't have a lot of idea about what was going on, but I was going to be there. But even I could see that there was a problem with the 8-year-old soccer match. There was a lot of activity, there was a lot of energy expended, a lot of resources deployed, but at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot of progress happening. And that's because what happened was both sides somehow formed into this giant amoeba that just sort of went around the soccer field like this. It was phenomenal. Do you realise that Matthew 28 here, Jesus is saying, spread out. Don't bunch together all the time in a safety in number strategy. Do you need to take up your position? Spreading the fame of Jesus where God has uniquely placed you. So, I want you to sit with two possibly uncomfortable questions for a minute. The first is this: what does being scattered potentially look like for me week after week? Just imagine that. Where does God scatter you with the Great Commission? And secondly, what are some immediate things that I can do right now to help me spread out rather than always clump together with other believers? Because I can tell you this, that ministers, our whole diary fills up with meeting Christians if we're not careful. So we have to build into our lives space to be with people outside the church, and I bet you do as well. It's not a case of not being committed to God's people, it's just a case of making room. In the Great Commission, Jesus reinterprets the creation mandate when he says, go and scatter, make little images of God across the face of the earth. And what I'm realising is there's a lot of ripe fruit out there. And if we don't go there, there's plenty of dodgy people on the internet and other places who will take advantage of those people who are curious and looking. Okay, so after outlining this overwhelming task to reach people, Jesus says in verse 20, "Lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age." And this is not some warm fuzzy, this is the essential component for what is a supernatural task. The book of Acts records the comments of non-believers as they encounter Christians. And they talk about the confidence they have, that they're untrained, and yet they can speak so clearly, they're uneducated. But do you know what they notice most? It's there in Acts chapter 4, verse 13. They notice that these people have been with Jesus. Now, this is to encourage you. You don't have to be Jesus out there. There just has to be evidence that you've been with him. Just need to be with him, and he will be with you. This is Jesus' co-mission. He'll collaborate with you. He won't leave you like a shag on the rock to work it out for yourself wherever he's put you. He will go with you. This promise is to go into a hostile workplace, into a difficult family situation that goes on for years, into your neighbourhood tensions with the people around you. What a relief to know he's always with us, always, in the person of the Holy Spirit, empowering you, giving you what you need in that setting. There's not a lunchroom, an office, a school, a home, a department, a factory floor, a farm, a work site that you can walk into where Jesus is not already Lord. And the ability to implement this mission hangs on him going with you. You can't do it any other way. And that promise stretches from the first century, according to Jesus' words there, till the end of the age. And that means there's a use-by date for this task. So there's going to come a time where there will be no more Hope Sundays that we're planning. There will be no more one-to-one Uncover the Bible in John. There'll be no more, ES Jesus Weeks on campus. That time will be over. So the promise of Jesus' presence to do this mission is for a limited space of time. So Jesus came and he said, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations." Did they do it? Did they listen? I think they did. All the way down through the decades, through the centuries, Christians have heard this, taken the mantle on their shoulders. And that's how it got to me. It's probably how it got to you. They took it seriously. Thank God they took spreading the gospel seriously, not just as a leisure activity. I read these words and I cannot evade the charge. I can't palm this off to the keen beans. I can't just give this to the missionaries or the evangelists. I can't outsource it to ministry staff who look after me. This is Your commission. It's mine. Matthew is urging the person who reads his gospel to move from a spectator and turn into a player. Think about where you'll be tomorrow. How is going and making disciples going to shape your plans of what you're doing? Do you know the Reformation led to the democratisation of the church? That is, we understand now we're the priesthood of all believers. No one's any more special than anyone else. I've been reading this book by Paul Williams called Exiles on Mission. It's a great metaphor for what we are as Christians in the world. And he says about the Great Reformation, he says, well, what we need today is the democratisation of mission. We need every believer sent by Jesus into the world. Every believer, a missionary, and mission involving the reconciliation of every person from every sphere of life and work. Now, there are lots of competing visions out there that will vie for your attention over the years ahead, but nothing comes close to this. This is captivating. What makes the commission great? Who gives it? All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. It's now placed in the hands of the only one who can reverse the decay that we see in humanity around us. Who gets it? Make disciples of all the nations, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. I take it that means all types of people, all sorts of situations, and often it will take you into beyond your comfort zone, for sure. How do we do it? Well, mission is largely centrifugal. It's out there, it's scattering, it's a pushing out. What does scattering look like for you? If you're a worker, Engage Workfaith wants to help you with this. Really, really do. We want to support you when you're scattered. Who goes with us? Jesus is always with you. He's always with you when you venture into those dark corners of this world and you're trying to shine the light of the gospel where it's desperately needed. You have a great commission because of who gives it, who gets it, how you do it, and who goes with you. So lean into Jesus and do it.